the betrayal happens, and it's off to the high priest's house. They took Jesus to the high priest in 53, and the accusations, as Mark's narrator has it, are trumped up, and they don't agree with one another. The accusations are inconsistent and name things that we haven't seen anywhere in the story. In 13, Jesus is going to say, this building, see the great buildings, they're going to come down someday. He doesn't say, and I'll rebuild it, and all those things that get charged of him here, right? But they say, as we saw last time, they say this guy made wicked predictions about the temple. Have we had any interaction with Jesus and the Jewish leaders about the temple before? Last week he threw down and they got ticked off and started bringing people at him. Now they make it part of the accusation set. But there are no kind of answers from Jesus until they ask him the kind of ball game question. Then the high priest stood up before them and asked Jesus, have you an answer? What is it they testify against you? He was silent. Again, the high priest asked him, are you the Messiah, the Son of the Blessed One? Jesus said, I am. And you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of the power and coming with clouds of heaven. Their question is, are you the Messiah? And Jesus says yes. But there's a second part to what they accuse. Are you the Messiah, the Son of the Blessed One? That's a different thing, right? Sometimes we try to equate those two, but here's one for you. Nowhere in the Hebrew scriptures and nowhere in Jewish practice as we find it in the time of Jesus does anybody get executed for saying they're Messiah. Never happens, right? Never happens that somebody gets executed for blasphemy because they say they're the Messiah. However, calling yourself Son of God, Joel Marcus of Princeton wrote an article on this, and that's been kind of important. Saying you're the Son of God might by some have been taken as equation. So when we ask the question, why did Jesus die? There are different levels on which to ask it. Why did he purpose to die? But why in the court system of the Jewish people would he have been seen as a blasphemer? When people answer in a way that finds a precedent, what they go to generally is he was calling himself Son of God, which means equal to God. On the other hand, you and I have already found that when they go to Pilate with this accusation, Pilate's going to say, you guys are only jealous. 15:10, we looked at it a long time ago. These guys aren't after him because he's done something wrong. These guys are after him because they're envious of him. And Pilate kind of takes it lightly for a minute, right? So why did Jesus die? Well, in chapter 10, I've come not to, the Son of Man has come not to be served, but to serve and give his life a ransom for many, right? He came to ransom from his side. Why was he killed in terms of Jewish law or Roman law? Jewish law, some say he's blasphemed because he's equated himself with God by calling himself Son of the Blessed. But you and I know that it would have been sufficient just that the Jewish leaders were jealous and they found a charge and they took him over. And usually when they did this kind of thing in the relationship between Roman governors and local Jewish courts, then the Roman governor would ask, is this really any problem for Rome? Right? And so we get in the scene where they bring him to Pilate, we get Pilate sort of taking it lightly because he doesn't see cause. At least from a Roman perspective, this guy isn't a threat to us. He's going to go up as King of the Jews, the one you call King of the Jews, right? But Pilate's not worried about him. He throws out an olive branch and says, hey, you know what? You guys get to choose. This guy doesn't seem so, dangerous. So I'm going to throw this out. Do you want him to be the guy you release that we do this every year, right? I'm going to give you your usual amnesty. Which guy do you want? You see, it's not a life and death issue for Rome. And it's not really a life and death issue for Judaism. For Mark, it is an offense to the Jewish leaders that this guy has one-upped them. Right? That's a strange reason to give for why Jesus died. But it seems to be Mark's sense of things, right? Then comes in the course of the time between the first trial with the Jewish leaders and the second trial with Pilate, Peter denies, but we've already looked at that when we did the disciples' daftness and failure, right? So he comes out of Pilate's trial. The people choose him. They don't release him. They release Barabbas. And then it is on to the crucifixion. He's mocked by the soldiers and taken to the cross. And what I want to pause with as by way of finishing is what we learn at the cross, right? What do we learn about God, about Jesus, about us at the cross? Because there are all kinds of ways that people understand the cross. If I stopped and opened the mics, you would have 15 different explanations of why the cross was important, all the way from cross-shaped living is what Jesus set out for us. We're supposed to take up our crosses, and that means we're supposed to give ourselves out for people, right? So moral example, all the way from that over to substitutionary atonement and a lot of things in between. In Mark, we don't get much from Jesus on the cross. We get his derelict cry, my God, why have you forsaken me? And we don't get that much about what the significance of the cross is theologically. We get ransom, right? We don't get that much about moral example, except we get take up your cross. In Mark, because it's compressed and because it's the shortest of the Gospels, there's not a lot of space for Mark to do theology of the cross for us. But he does throw us those three bones, right? This is a template for discipleship, chapter 8. This is a ransom, whatever that means, and we'll go through the atonement kind of catalog next week as a way of leading into the resurrection. But whatever ransom means there, we would usually see it as kidnapping, ransom. We'll go back to that next week. And we see somehow that it became, at least in the drama of the cross, one of you sent a question about this. Reggie sent a question about this earlier. It seems dereliction and distance from God at some level that mirrors Psalm 2, right? And so we get, my God, why have you forsaken me? Which is a quote of a psalm and seems appropriate to the setting. The person who asked said, there are two times when Jesus seems derelict: in the garden, where he seems to say, can't we do this another way? And on the cross, where he says, my God, why have you forsaken me? Can we see those both as continuing in relationship with God, right? The quick answer back to, nevertheless, not what I want, but what you want. And can we see this as a way that he mirrors the human separation from God in the my God, why have you forsaken me? I think one of the great things about Mark is that it is possible to see it that way, or it's possible to see this as utter distance from God. Right? There is space in the way that Mark puts this for mystery. It would almost diminish the cross if we could describe it in absolute detail. There's something generative about the theological picture Mark gives. It doesn't fill in all the blanks. It's not a crossword puzzle to be solved. Mark's cross has the mystery of somehow doing a fourth thing. If it's a model for disciples, if it's a ransom, if it is somehow a sign of dereliction or distance from God, the fourth thing is the poignant one with which we'll end. Because we've been waiting the whole book for somebody to get Jesus's identity right. We've been waiting this whole book, and there have been good candidates, Jewish officials who should know the bottom out of what this is supposed to look like, Son of God is supposed to look like. And there are disciples who have been with him up and down and everywhere and seen him do all of his miracles and wonders. There are all kinds of people who would be candidates to know. But I'm going to read the last scene and the familiar scene where in the drama of Mark, nobody gets it except the least likely person at the foot of the cross. And we'll close with this. When it was noon, darkness came over the whole land until 3 p.m. At 3 o'clock, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, Eloi, Eloi, lema sabachthani, which means, my God, why have you forsaken me? And when some of the bystanders heard it, they said, listen, he's calling for Elijah. And someone ran, filled a sponge with sour wine, put it on a stick, and gave it to him to drink, saying, wait, let's see whether Elijah will come to take him down. And then Jesus gave a loud cry and breathed his last. And downtown, the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. Now, when the centurion who stood facing Jesus saw that in this way he breathed his last, he said, truly this man was God's son. What is it about dying that would make anybody ever think that this is a God son? What is it about mortality presented that summons immortality? If it is moral example, take up your cross and follow. If it is ransom, somehow buying back humanity. If it is dereliction and the distance from God that sin causes. In the end, the final word about cross for Mark, the final word about cross is, we see God more clearly there than anywhere else in the book. And it takes an uninterested Roman soldier to speak it out.